Good morning, everyone. So first, my show starts at 10 o'clock. Make sure you tune in for my 10 o'clock show, Sistah-talk with Valerie. But this is not about the show. This is about, I want to say, a special thank you to Melissa, the comedian, who invited me to participate yesterday in her event, which was about sexual assault in the African American community. And I want to tell y'all that thing filled me, touched me, made me feel so, it made me feel a lot of things. Connected. It made me feel empathy. It made me feel pride. Because, hey, cuz, all right, I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you after the show. I'll call you about, like, this afternoon, I'll call you. Or call me, because I should be finished the show at 10. I love you. So, here's the thing. There were a room full of people, and Lessa, I call her Lessa, but it's Lissa, sparked this, she made the place feel so safe that people who participated in a PSA, because she made a PSA about sexual assault and about believing the victim. And so sexual assault is so prevalent in our community that to watch, it was about a dozen people who really stood up and talked about being sexually assaulted in their community, and most by the hands of people who were family members. And it just resonated with me. One, because I'm a victim of sexual assault by someone who was supposed to be a family member. And also because my child was a victim of sexual assault by someone who was a family member. And it talked about the depression that you feel later on. Now, you know, a lot of times you feel these things. I have gone through feelings of emotions, of depression, of feeling unworthy, all these feelings. And although I identified it as depression, I never connected it to the sexual assault. But what I know is that all of these things are part of what happens to you. And so many of my friends and people that I know are victims of sexual assault. Sitting there listening to these ladies be so brave and talk about what they had gone through was something that I had never seen in one place. It inspired me. It helped me to know that what I do is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's really being transparent and reaching out and being a support for women. Sexual assault doesn't just happen to women. It happens to men. Unfortunately, there are less men that are able to talk about it or admit it. But it impacts, hey Sharon, I love you, baby. It impacts everything in your life. It impacts your relationships. It impacts how you navigate through the world. It impacts how you feel about yourself. It impacts how you feel about other people. It causes depression. It causes you to feel sometimes like you don't want to go on. It causes you to feel like you want to isolate. It creates mistrust. And so many times it's done to children. And so we can't even imagine how someone can, when we're people who would never do that, we can't even imagine how someone would hurt children like that. But those people, what I know, because at this point in my life, as much as it still impacts me, I have decided that I can't even entertain the predators, because I know that most predators were victims as well. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right, but it kind of like, I don't know, for me it's like, okay, they need some help too. We have to be so careful of how we monitor our children. And sometimes we are so, especially as single parents, you just really, you need that support. And when someone wants to babysit or whatever, you kind of say yes, and it happens with babysitters. Or you have family members that you trust, you don't think that they would hurt your loved one. It's not something that we talk about, because a lot of our parents and grandparents, dealt with it by what happens in this house stays in this house. You didn't talk about it. And so because it's not something that we talk about often, it's something that's generational. And back in the day, it was just like a hush hush. And unfortunately, back in the day, a lot of adults did not support, co-sign. Maybe they didn't have the tools to do it, believe their children. I don't know what it was. But I'm so glad, I'm so grateful for Lissa for really being brave enough to be able to bring this conversation up in the African American community. And not that it only happens in the African American community, but we have to get to a point to where we have conversations so that we can be free. It doesn't mean that we're healed. It doesn't mean that everything is okay. But at least for me, sitting in a room and listening to people talk about things that I've felt myself, that I've experienced myself, and say, wow, yeah, when I was feeling that, I wasn't alone. Yeah, I've experienced that too. I'm not alone. Because when you know that other people have gone through some of the things that you have gone through, you have that opportunity to have support, or you can identify, okay, I'm not by myself, or yeah, that person's going through it too. Or you even have somebody that you can reach out to for support. And that's why I always say to my friends and people that know me that when you check on me and ask me if I'm okay, say really, because you never know how someone is feeling. Sometimes they could be right on the edge, and that could be the day that they need somebody to say, look, I got you, or it's okay, or you can call me, you can talk to me, or whatever. Just, I'm here. That hug, whatever you need. There are so many people that are dealing with this. I say, I wrote my book, The Book Club, initially because it was something that I felt was a really good book, entertaining book. But what I realize now is that because there are so many things in that book that resonates in real life. So there is a female who it has dealt with sexual abuse. Her sister was molested by the uncle, and she jumps off the James River Bridge. There's a young lady who had been abused terribly for all her life. She was born a male, and she had this transformation to a female, but she talks about all of her abuse and how that impacted her. There's a character in the book that suffers from domestic violence. There is so there's a woman in the book that deals with body images, and all of these things, all of these characters are part of me, and also things that I saw in my life. And so I realized the connection between what comes out of me in my writing and what I experience in real life. And so I say to folks, check on people. Understand that we go through so many things in this world. And I just want people to know that you're not by yourself. You don't have to be able to fix what's going on, but it is so important to be able to say to someone, sis, it's okay, or I got you, or to pray for somebody, or whatever. People go through so many things, and you see a person and you don't really know their story, and they might act a certain way, and you judge them. People are so afraid of being judged. That's why they don't share a lot of things, because they don't know what someone is going to say about it. And judgment was one of the things that came up yesterday as people were sharing their story about being sexually assaulted, not knowing what people were going to say. But I'm here to say it don't even matter what people say. Because number one, those same people that talk could be someone who has also experienced the same thing themselves. And also, if people can judge pain, then they're not people that you even need to be worried about anyway. And that also goes for the faith community. We need to be having these conversations in the faith community. I love God with all my heart and soul, but I keep it real. And the fact of the matter is, although there are some communities of faith that have conversations, real conversations with their people about things that are important and that affect their everyday lives, everybody doesn't, because they want to act like it's all good. for me, if I walk into a place of worship and I walk out feeling the same way that I felt when I went in, then it didn't do what it was supposed to do. Yeah, you're supposed to be able to praise God and worship God and all of those things, but you also should have an institution that is there to help you deal with and navigate through life without feeling judged because you've gone through something. You know, we should be talking about sexual assault in the African American community in the church. We should be talking about domestic violence in the church. We should be talking about body image in the church. We should be talking about sexuality in the church. We should be talking about bisexual, transsexual, any kind of sexual in the church. We should be talking about HIV in the church. We should be talking about violence in our communities in the friggin' church. We should be talking about depression and substance abuse and all of those things in the friggin' church, because if you can't talk about them in the church, where do you talk about them at? Those are things that people deal with. You can call it what you want, a spirit of this, a spirit of that. You can call it what you want, but the fact of the matter is that people are hurting. People are hurting so much to the point to where they don't even want to live. People are going through a whole lot of things, and so if you can't share those experiences or have those experiences addressed in your places of worship, then where do you need to have them? If you can't have feel like your place of worship or your faith community is supportive in things that are happening in our community, I'm talking about violence in our community. I'm talking about food deserts in our community. I'm talking about lack in our community, homelessness from block to block. This is Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, and there is no place you can go that you can't find a church on every block. But on those same blocks, people are sleeping next to, underneath, around the church. Like, I am not trying to, get on the church this morning, okay? Because I know, number one, that there are churches that are supportive in the community. But I look, they say the word, tell the truth and shame the devil. And that's the truth. That has nothing to do with God. And unfortunately, because of the way that some people have been hurt and mistreated in the church, people connect that to God. That's not about God. Okay, that's about individuals. So that's my rant. I have to have my rants. I got to go do my show. But I just want to thank Lissa for being brave enough and for being loving enough to have that event last night that talked about sexual assault in the community. It helped me. It warmed my soul. It helped to heal me in some ways, to continue my healing. I appreciated it. I love you, Lissa. I thank all the people that were brave enough to talk about their stories yesterday. I think that they are wonderful, beautiful human beings, and I just want to tell them that today. All right, y'all tune in at 10 o'clock. Sistah-talk with Valerie. 10 o'clock, tune in. I'll be back. See you later. Love you.